Charlotte Flair's decline in fan interest is not a mystery to anyone who has followed WWE over the past several years. For a long time, she was positioned as the centerpiece of the women's division, but the very thing that once made her a staple has now made her unbearable to many. Fans feel an overwhelming sense of fatigue every time she reappears, whether it's because of the sheer volume of title reigns that have felt more mechanical than meaningful, or the way her character evolution has remained stagnant despite changes in storyline. Charlotte has been treated like royalty, but the modern WWE audience no longer responds positively to wrestlers who are simply handed accolades without the organic support that made the likes of Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, or Bianca Belair beloved. Charlotte's presence often feels less like a boost to the women's division, and more like an oppressive reminder of WWE's worst booking habits. No matter who rises, no matter how hot someone gets, it often feels like Charlotte is always waiting in the wings to swoop in and snatch the spotlight. Instead of helping elevate others, her appearances frequently derail momentum for wrestlers that fans are eager to see thrive. When Rhea Ripley was on the cusp of superstardom at WrestleMania 36, Charlotte's victory killed her momentum cold. When Asuka was undefeated for over 2 years, it was Charlotte who ended her streak. Time after time, Charlotte has been positioned as the immovable object, the final boss, the inevitable victor. Fans have grown exhausted by that pattern because it doesn't feel earned. It feels imposed. The injury layoff in 2024 could have been a blessing in disguise. Time away often allows a wrestler to come back refreshed, reimagined, and more beloved than ever, but even her return at Royal Rumble 2025 felt more like a corporate mandate than a triumphant comeback. WWE painted her as the conquering queen returning to her throne, but fans barely reacted. There was no cathartic joy, no overwhelming support. Instead, there was a muted groan that traveled across social media and inside the arena itself. Her winning the Royal Rumble again over fresher, more exciting talent sent a crystal clear message. WWE hadn't learned anything. Charlotte Flair was still their default setting, and fans were expected to accept it no matter how stale or uninspired it felt. Another factor that drives resentment towards Charlotte is the perception of favoritism. Whether fair or not, many fans believe that her status in WWE is heavily influenced by her last name and her legacy, rather than by her current performance or connection to the audience. Ric Flair's daughter was always going to have a built-in advantage, but instead of crafting a path that felt unique and distinct from her father's, Charlotte's character has leaned into the idea of entitlement. She often brags about being genetically superior, and while that might have been an effective heel trait a few years ago, it now feels tone-deaf. Modern wrestling audiences crave authenticity, vulnerability, and storytelling depth. Charlotte, by contrast, often comes off as robotic and detached. Her promos exacerbate the problem. In an era where top stars like Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Sami Zayn craft emotional narratives rooted in their real lives, Charlotte continues to deliver promos filled with corporate buzzwords, hollow arrogance, and shallow motivations. When she speaks, it often feels rehearsed and unnatural. There's no raw emotion behind her words, no sense that she's truly fighting for something meaningful. Compare that to someone like Liv Morgan, whose organic underdog story resonated deeply with fans, or even Bayley, who reinvented herself successfully after her lovable hugger persona ran its course. Charlotte, meanwhile, has not meaningfully evolved since her NXT days. The booking surrounding Charlotte has also hurt her beyond repair. Multiple sudden title reigns, meaningless victories, and rushed storylines have eroded any excitement that once surrounded her matches. When she shows up, it's expected that she will be in the title picture within weeks. There is no journey, no chase, no doubt. Wrestling thrives on uncertainty and emotional investment. Charlotte offers neither. WWE's insistence on using her as a shortcut to prestige for the women's division actually cheapens the division itself. Fans have watched too many deserving women have their moments stolen or diminished because the company believed Charlotte had to be involved for it to feel important. Another reason people have turned on her is that the landscape of women's wrestling has evolved dramatically, and Charlotte has not evolved with it. Audiences now appreciate different styles, personalities, and stories. Stars like Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, Bayley, and even Jade Cargill have shown that women's wrestling can thrive without a singular dominant force monopolizing the spotlight. Charlotte still wrestles the same formulaic, slow-paced matches she always has. The mechanical athleticism that once set her apart now feels dated against the fluid, dynamic style of newer wrestlers. Fans are bored of seeing the same moonsault to the outside, the same figure 8 finish, the same moves that once thrilled but now induce eye rolls. Compounding the problem is Charlotte's complete lack of relatability. Fans don't see a piece of themselves in her. They don't feel her struggles, largely because she rarely presents herself as vulnerable. She often plays a character who's better than everyone else by default, and in today's WWE, where long-term storytelling and emotional connections are king, that kind of superiority complex feels sterile. Compare that to someone like Sami Zayn, whose journey from underdog underdog to beloved hero was rooted in real emotion. Fans lived and died with Sami because they saw themselves in his imperfections. Charlotte's portrayal offers no such bridge to the audience. There's also the reality that WWE itself has evolved beyond needing Charlotte Flair to legitimize the women's division. When the women's revolution began, WWE leaned heavily on the four horsewomen to establish credibility. Now, the division has blossomed into a deep, diverse, and talented roster that doesn't need the crutch of Charlotte to be taken seriously. Wrestlers like Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Tiffany Stratton, and Roxanne Perez have carved out their own fan bases without relying on legacy names. Every time Charlotte is thrust back into the title scene, it feels like a step backward to an era where WWE didn't trust women to get over without being attached to a Flair, Banks, Lynch, or Bayley. Injuries and time off have only widened the gap between Charlotte and the audience. When a wrestler disappears for a long period, there's an expectation that their return will be fresh, exciting, and meaningful. But Charlotte's returns always feel like a reset rather than a progression. It's as if the time away didn't matter. She comes back, wins something important, and everything feels the same. There's no growth, no reflection, no acknowledgement of change. Meanwhile, the rest of the roster evolves. Audiences move forward, but Charlotte remains frozen in an outdated mold. Her real-life persona blending too much with her on-screen character also hasn't helped. In an age where fans are hyper-aware of backstage politics and social media presence, Charlotte's perceived arrogance off-screen mirrors her in-ring character too closely. When fans hear about her pulling creative strings, demanding certain booking protections, or having disproportionate influence over major storylines, it doesn't endear her to the audience. It reinforces the idea that she is more concerned with maintaining her own status than helping the division flourish. Whether or not all these perceptions are accurate is irrelevant. In wrestling, perception is reality, and the reality for many is that Charlotte Flair is seen as a relic of an outdated philosophy. Even when WWE has tried to course correct and present her in a more sympathetic light, it has backfired. Fans remember too many instances where others' momentum was sacrificed for her gain. At some point, redemption becomes impossible when the audience simply doesn't want to go on the journey with you anymore. Charlotte has reached that point. It's not that fans are angry at her anymore, it's that they're indifferent. And in wrestling, indifference is the death knell for any performer. The continued marketing of Charlotte as the centerpiece feels especially hollow when the division thrives in her absence. When she's gone, fresh rivalries form, new stars are made, and the energy feels different. When she returns, everything reverts back to tired booking patterns, familiar match layouts, and an overwhelming sense that we're watching a rerun of a show we no longer enjoy. WWE's obsession with legacy, combined with their fear of truly moving on from the old guard, has created a situation where Charlotte is less of a star and more of a barrier to progress. Additionally, Charlotte's attempt to branch out into acting has been met with mixed reactions. While her role in You Lose, You Die might have been a way to extend her brand beyond wrestling, it further alienated fans who feel she is more focused on building her personal empire than enriching the product they love. Wrestling fans are fiercely loyal but expect loyalty in return. They want to feel like their favorite stars are passionate about wrestling itself, not just using it as a stepping stone to other industries. Social media hasn't helped either. Charlotte's presence online often feels out of touch with the current climate. While other wrestlers engage with fans, show vulnerability, or participate in meme culture, Charlotte's posts often reinforce the same image of aloof superiority. Wrestling is more interactive than ever, and fans expect a level of transparency and humility from their favorites. Charlotte projects an image that seems resistant to change, resistant to critique, and resistant to adaptation. The persistent push of Charlotte Flair, despite visible fan disinterest, has only hardened the resentment. Wrestling audiences, more informed and interconnected than ever, recognize when something is being pushed artificially rather than growing organically. In the case of Charlotte, the discrepancy between WWE's presentation and the audience's real-time reaction grows more jarring every year. This disconnect creates an alienating atmosphere where viewers are reminded that their voices are secondary to corporate preferences. Whenever Charlotte is inserted into feuds, especially with fan favorites, the reaction isn't one of heightened anticipation, but of collective groaning. Instead of building intrigue, her presence often saps energy from stories that might otherwise flourish naturally. Charlotte's recent programs feel even more disconnected from reality. WWE tries to frame her returns and matches as monumental events, but the audience no longer sees them that way. The pomp and circumstance feel empty, as though the production value and commentary insistence can cover up the fact that the emotional investment is missing. Fans do not dislike her because she is a villain. They are indifferent because they no longer believe her character matters to the stories they care about. They no longer believe her victories or defeats significantly impact the women's division. In a business built on emotional investment, that's a fatal wound. Finally, it must be said that WWE's refusal refusal to listen to their audience has made the situation worse. Rather than adjusting Charlotte's role, they continue to force her into spots she has outgrown. The fans have spoken loudly through muted reactions, walkouts, and online criticism, but WWE, obsessed with her perceived prestige, refuses to adapt. The end result is a talent who, through no single catastrophic misstep, but rather 1,000 small ones, has become emblematic of everything fans resent about modern WWE booking. In a company desperate to feel fresh and innovative, Charlotte Flair feels like yesterday's news packaged as tomorrow's promise, and no amount of title reigns, royal returns, or manufactured grandeur can change that reality.